Maya sat in the small clinic room, her hands shaking as the doctor looked at her with sympathetic eyes. She was only 24 years old with her whole life ahead of her. But the words that came out of the doctor's mouth felt like a death sentence in her world. "I'm sorry, Maya. The tests show that you cannot have children. It's a rare condition and there's nothing we can do about it." The room started spinning. Maya tried to speak, but no words came out. In her village, a woman's worth was measured by one thing above all else: her ability to give her husband sons and daughters. Without that, she was considered incomplete, broken, useless. She walked home in a daze that evening, her feet moving automatically while her mind raced with terrible thoughts. How would she tell her parents? What would happen to her future? Who would want to marry a woman who couldn't give them children? When she reached her small family home, her mother was cooking dinner over the wood stove. Her father sat outside smoking his evening cigarette. Maya gathered her courage and told them everything the doctor had said. The silence that followed was worse than any shouting could have been. Her mother's face went pale, then red with anger. Her father simply stood up and walked away without saying a word. That night, Maya heard her parents arguing in heated whispers. She caught words like shame, burden, and what will people say? The next few days were torture. Her mother barely looked at her. Her father acted as if she didn't exist. Neighbors started whispering when she walked by. Somehow word had spread through the village like wildfire. The girl who couldn't have children. The defective daughter. Maya tried to stay strong. She helped her mother with housework, cooked meals, and kept her head down. Maybe if she was useful enough, they would forget about her diagnosis. Maybe they would still love her despite everything. But then 2 weeks later, everything changed in the worst possible way. A black car pulled up outside their house. It was expensive and gleaming, completely out of place in their dusty village. A man stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than Maya's family earned in a year. He had cold eyes and a cruel smile. Maya's father invited him inside. Her mother served tea with trembling hands. Maya was told to sit and be quiet. The man's name was Mr. Sharma, and he was a wealthy merchant from the city. He looked at Maya the way someone might examine a piece of furniture they were thinking about buying. It made her skin crawl. "She's healthy otherwise?" Mr. Sharma asked as if Maya wasn't sitting right there. Yes, very healthy, strong. Good worker," her father said quickly. Maya's stomach dropped. What was happening? Mr. Sharma nodded slowly. "My wife needs help with the household. Someone young and obedient. Someone who won't cause problems or have foolish dreams about marriage and running off." That's when Maya understood. Her parents were selling her. Actually selling her like property, no. Maya jumped to her feet. "I won't go." "You can't do this." Her father's hand cracked across her face so hard she fell back into her chair. "You will do as you're told." "You've brought nothing but shame to this family. At least this way you'll be useful to someone." Tears streamed down Maya's face as she looked at her mother, begging silently for help. But her mother just looked away, her own eyes wet with tears that she refused to let fall. Mr. Sharma pulled out an envelope thick with cash. Maya's father counted it eagerly, his hands shaking with greed. The merchant smiled that cruel smile again. "She'll come with me now," he said. "My driver will take her bags." "I don't want to go," Maya screamed, but her father grabbed her arm roughly. "You'll go, and you'll be grateful we found someone willing to take a useless girl like you. We have debts to pay. Your brother needs money for his wedding. You're finally doing something worthwhile for this family." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her own parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect her, were selling her to a stranger because she couldn't have children. Because they needed money. Because she was now worthless to them. She was dragged to the car, her small bag of belongings thrown in after her. As the car pulled away, she looked back at her childhood home. Her mother stood in the doorway wiping her eyes. Her father had already gone back inside, probably counting his money. The drive to the city took 5 hours. Maya cried for the first 2, then went numb. Mr. Sharma didn't speak to her once, busy with his phone and papers. She was nothing to him. Just a purchase. Just a thing. When they arrived at his large house in the city, his wife was waiting. Mrs. Sharma was a thin woman with a pinched face and mean eyes. She looked Maya up and down with disgust. This is the village girl? She better work hard. I won't tolerate laziness. Maya was shown to a tiny room in the back of the house, barely bigger than a closet. There was a thin mattress on the floor and one small window. This was her new life. The next morning started at 5. Mrs. Sharma woke her by banging on the door, already shouting orders. Maya had to cook breakfast, clean the entire house, wash clothes by hand, and do whatever else she was told. The work never stopped until late at night, but worse than the work was the way they treated her. Mr. Sharma ignored her completely, as if she was invisible. Mrs. Sharma was constantly cruel, insulting Maya every chance she got. "No wonder your parents got rid of you," she would say. "What use is a woman who can't even do the one thing women are supposed to do? You're lucky we were charitable enough to take you in." Every night Maya cried herself to sleep on that thin mattress. She missed her village, her friends, even her parents, despite what they'd done to her. She felt like a prisoner in this big house, trapped with no way out. The other servants whispered that she should be grateful, that at least she had food and shelter. But Maya didn't feel grateful. She felt betrayed, abandoned, and completely alone in the world. Days turned into weeks, then months. Maya's spirit slowly broke under the constant work and abuse. She stopped crying because what was the point? She stopped hoping because hope was too painful. She just existed, moving through each day like a ghost. But deep inside, in a tiny corner of her heart that refused to die completely, a small voice whispered that this couldn't be her entire life, that somehow, someday things had to get better. She just had to survive long enough to find out if that voice was telling the truth. 6 months had passed since her parents sold her. 6 months of being treated worse than an animal. 6 months of having every ounce of dignity stripped away. Maya didn't know it yet, but her chance for escape was coming soon. And when it came, she would have to be brave enough to take it, even if it meant risking everything she had left. Which, to be honest, wasn't much at all. The opportunity came on a Wednesday morning, exactly 6 months and 3 days after Maya had been brought to the city. Mrs. Sharma needed vegetables from the market, and the regular cook was sick. Maya was ordered to go instead, with strict instructions about what to buy and how much money she could spend. It was the first time Maya had been allowed outside the house. Alone since she'd arrived, her hands shook as she took the shopping bag and the small amount of money Mrs. Sharma handed her. The woman's sharp eyes watched her suspiciously. "Don't even think about running away," Mrs. Sharma warned. "Where would you go? Your own parents don't want you. You have nothing and you are nothing. Besides, if you run, we'll find you and make sure you regret it." Maya nodded obediently, keeping her eyes down, but inside her heart was racing. This might be her only chance. The market was crowded and noisy, full of people buying and selling everything imaginable. Maya walked through the stalls, her mind spinning with possibilities. She had no plan, no money of her own, nowhere to go, but anything had to be better than going back to that house. Over the past months, Maya had been secretly saving tiny amounts of money whenever she could. A coin that fell behind the couch, change that Mrs. Sharma forgot to count, money she found while cleaning. It wasn't much, maybe enough for a few meals, but it was something. She'd hidden the coins in a small cloth tied around her waist under her clothes. It was everything she owned in the world. Maya bought the vegetables quickly, her decision made. She wouldn't go back. She couldn't go back. If she returned to that house, she would die there, not physically maybe, but in every way that mattered. Instead of heading home, she walked toward the bus station. Her legs felt weak and she kept looking over her shoulder, expecting Mr. Sharma's driver to appear and drag her back. But the crowded streets were full of strangers who didn't know or care who she was. At the bus station, Maya looked at the departure board with desperate eyes. She didn't know where to go, only that it needed to be far away. Her eyes landed on a destination, Pinewood Valley. She'd never heard of it, but it was a 12-hour journey north, toward the mountains. "One ticket to Pinewood Valley," she whispered to the clerk, pushing her precious coins across the counter. The clerk counted the money and nodded. "Last seat on the 3 o'clock bus. It leaves in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes were the longest of Maya's life. She sat in a corner of the station, trying to make herself invisible, sure that any moment someone would recognize her and drag her back. Every time someone walked past, her heart jumped into her throat. But the bus came and Maya climbed aboard with shaking legs. She found her seat in the very back and pressed herself against the window. Only when the bus pulled out of the station did she finally let herself believe it. She had escaped. The relief was so strong that tears started flowing down her face. The woman sitting next to her gave her a concerned look, but Maya just shook her head and looked out the window. She couldn't explain. She couldn't tell anyone what had happened to her. The bus journey was long and uncomfortable. They drove through the night, stopping at small towns along the way. Maya didn't sleep, too afraid and too excited. She had no plan for what would happen when she reached Pinewood Valley. She just knew she needed to get as far from the city as possible. As the bus climbed into the mountains, the scenery changed dramatically. The crowded, polluted city gave way to forests and clean air. Maya had never seen so many trees in her life. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. By the time the bus reached Pinewood Valley, it was early morning of the second day. Maya stepped off the bus into a small mountain town that looked like something from a different world. The air was cold and fresh, carrying the smell of pine trees. There were no tall buildings, no crowded streets, just a quiet little town surrounded by forest. Maya walked away from the bus station, her bag clutched in her hand. She had no money left. She had no food. She had nowhere to sleep. But she was free, and that was something. The town was small, and people stared at her as she walked past. She must have looked terrible, with her tired eyes and rumpled clothes, but no one stopped her or asked questions. Maya walked until she reached the edge of town where the forest began. She was exhausted in a way that went deeper than just lack of sleep. 6 months of abuse and hard work, 2 days of traveling, and the constant fear had drained everything from her. She found a spot under a large tree, just off the road. The ground was covered with soft pine needles. Maya sat down, leaning back against the tree trunk. She told herself she would just rest for a minute, then figure out what to do next. But her body had other plans. The moment she closed her eyes, darkness pulled her under. She was too tired to fight it. Too hungry, too weak, too broken. Maya's last conscious thought was that at least if she died here, she would die free. Not as someone's property, not as someone's servant, just as herself. The cold mountain air grew colder as the day went on. Maya's breathing became shallow. She had pushed her body too far, and now it was shutting down. Dehydration, malnutrition, and exhaustion were taking their toll. She didn't hear the sound of an old truck coming down the forest road. She didn't hear the vehicle slow down and stop. She didn't hear the doors opening or the sound of footsteps approaching. A man's voice said something, but the words didn't make sense to her foggy brain. Then there were more voices, younger and higher. Children, maybe. Someone touched her shoulder gently, and she tried to open her eyes but couldn't quite manage it. Strong arms lifted her carefully, as if she weighed nothing at all. She wanted to fight, to protest, but her body wouldn't respond. As consciousness slipped away completely, Maya felt herself being carried somewhere. A part of her wondered if this was death finally coming for her. Another part hoped that maybe, just maybe, it was something else. Something better. She had escaped the city and the people who treated her like property. She had made it to the mountains and found freedom, even if only for a brief moment. What happened next was beyond her control. All she could do was hope that fate had something kinder in store for her than what she'd experienced so far. In the gathering darkness of her mind, Maya let go and surrendered to whatever came next. Thomas Bennett had been driving this same forest road for 15 years. He knew every turn, every bump, every tree. That's why he immediately noticed something different that evening as he headed home with his 4 children in the back of his old truck. "Dad, stop." His youngest daughter, 6-year-old Lily, suddenly shouted, "There's someone over there!" Thomas slowed the truck and looked where Lily was pointing. At first, he didn't see anything unusual, just trees and shadows. But then he spotted it. A figure slumped against a tree trunk just off the road. "Stay in the truck," he told his children, but he knew they wouldn't listen. They never did. As he approached, Thomas realized it was a young woman, unconscious and barely breathing. Her clothes were dusty from travel, and she looked like she hadn't eaten a proper meal in weeks. His oldest daughter, 13-year-old Sophie, had followed him and gasped when she saw the woman. "Is she dead, Dad?" asked one of the 9-year-old twins, David, from behind them. "No, but she's in bad shape," Thomas said, checking her pulse. It was weak but steady. "We need to get her to the house now." He carefully lifted the woman, surprised by how light she was. She should weigh more than this. His other twin son, Daniel, ran ahead to open the truck door. Together, they managed to get her into the front seat while the children squeezed into the back. The drive home took only 10 minutes, but it felt longer. The woman didn't wake up, didn't move at all. Thomas kept glancing at her, making sure she was still breathing. "Who is she?" Sophie asked quietly. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll help her, okay?" Thomas had been a widower for 2 years now. His wife, Catherine, had died from pneumonia, leaving him alone to raise 4 children while working as a lumberjack. It had been the hardest 2 years of his life, but Catherine had always taught their children to help others no matter what. He wouldn't dishonor her memory by leaving someone to die on the roadside. When they reached their cabin, Thomas carried the woman inside and laid her on the couch. Sophie ran to get blankets while the twins fetched water. Little Lily just stood in the corner watching with wide eyes. "Lily, go get the first aid kit from the bathroom," Thomas said gently, and the little girl ran off. Grateful to have something to do, Thomas checked the woman over as best he could. She didn't seem to have any injuries, just exhaustion and malnutrition. He managed to get her to drink a little water, though she didn't wake up. Over the next hour, the children helped as much as they could. Sophie, who had been trying to be the woman of the house since her mother died, proved how capable she was. She helped Thomas clean the woman's face and hands, brought warm soup from the kitchen, and kept her younger siblings from getting too loud. "Do you think she ran away from something bad?" Sophie asked quietly while the younger children were in the other room. Thomas looked at his wise daughter. Sometimes he forgot she was only 13. She'd had to grow up too fast after losing her mother. "Maybe," he admitted, "but that's her business. Right now we just need to make sure she's okay." As evening turned to night, the woman finally began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. When she saw Thomas leaning over her, she tried to jerk away, panic filling her face. Hey, it's okay," Thomas said, holding up his hands. "You're safe. We found you by the road. You were unconscious." The woman looked around wildly, taking in the small cabin, the children peeking around the doorway, the warm fire in the fireplace. She tried to sit up but swayed dangerously. "Easy," Thomas said. "You need to rest. You're very weak." "When's the last time you ate?" The woman just stared at him, still clearly terrified. Thomas recognized that look. He'd seen it before in animals that had been mistreated. She was expecting him to hurt her. "I'm Thomas," he said calmly. "These are my kids, Sophie, David, Daniel, and Lily. You're in our home. No one here will hurt you, I promise." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice was rough from disuse. "Why what? Why would you help me?" "You don't know me," Thomas smiled sadly. "Do I need a reason to help someone who's in trouble?" The woman didn't answer, just started crying. Not loud sobs, but quiet tears that slid down her face like she'd been holding them in for too long. Sophie, with the compassion of her late mother, came forward with a tissue. "It's okay," Sophie said softly. "My dad helps everyone. Last month he rescued a baby deer. The month before that, he fixed Mrs. Henderson's roof for free. He's like that. Despite everything," the woman almost smiled. "What's your name?" Thomas asked. There was a long pause. "Maya." "Well, Maya, you're going to stay here tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out what comes next. But right now you need food and rest. Sophie, can you heat up that soup?" His daughter nodded and hurried to the kitchen. The twins came closer, curious but shy. Lily, being 6 and fearless, walked right up to Maya. "I like your hair," Lily said seriously. "It's very long." Maya touched her hair self-consciously. "Thank you," she whispered. "Are you going to stay with us?" Lily asked hopefully. "We don't have a mom anymore. She went to heaven. Dad tries really hard, but he burns dinner a lot." "Lily," Thomas said, embarrassed, but Maya laughed. It was a small, rusty sound, like she hadn't laughed in a long time. Sophie brought the soup and Maya ate slowly, her hands shaking with weakness. The children sat around watching her like she was the most interesting thing they'd ever seen. "Okay, you 3, bedtime," Thomas announced when Maya had finished eating. "But Dad," the twins protested. "No buts. Say goodnight to Maya." The children said their goodnights, with Lily giving Maya a little wave. Sophie lingered at the doorway. "I'm glad you're okay," she said shyly, then disappeared upstairs with her siblings. Thomas pulled up a chair near the couch. "You should sleep. We can talk in the morning." Maya looked at him with something like wonder in her eyes. "I don't understand. You found a stranger on the road and you just brought her into your home? Around your children? What if I'm dangerous?" Thomas shrugged. "Are you dangerous?" "No. Then there's nothing to worry about. Look, Maya, I don't know what you're running from and you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But I can see someone hurt you badly. Life's hurt you badly. So I'm just going to offer you something simple. A safe place to rest for as long as you need it. No questions, no demands, just kindness. My wife believed that's what people should do for each other. I try to live by what she taught me." Maya's tears started again. I don't deserve this. Everyone deserves kindness. Maya, everyone. As Thomas left to check on his children upstairs, Maya lay back on the soft couch, covered in warm blankets, and couldn't quite believe what was happening. For the first time in months, she felt safe. For the first time in her life, a stranger had shown her genuine kindness without wanting anything in return. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't entirely cruel after all. Maya woke up with a start, her heart pounding. For a confused moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered the cabin, the lumberjack, the 4 children. She sat up quickly, looking around the unfamiliar room in the early morning light. Everything from last night felt like a dream. Had someone really helped her without wanting anything in return? It seemed impossible. The smell of burning toast drifted from the kitchen, followed by a child's voice saying, "Dad, it's black again." Despite herself, Maya smiled. She stood up slowly, her body still weak but better than yesterday. She folded the blankets neatly, unsure what she was supposed to do. Should she leave? Should she stay? Thomas had said she could rest, but surely he didn't mean more than one night. Thomas appeared in the doorway, looking embarrassed and holding a plate with very dark toast. "Good morning. Sorry about the smell. I'm not the best cook. Are you hungry?" Maya nodded hesitantly. Her stomach was growling, but she felt awkward accepting more from these strangers. The kitchen was chaos. The twins were arguing about who got which bowl. Lily was trying to pour milk and spilling it everywhere. Sophie was attempting to clean up while also making sandwiches for school lunches. Thomas was trying to coordinate everything and failing. "I can help," Maya said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Thomas started to protest, but Maya had already moved to rescue the milk from Lily's hands and wipe up the spill. "You're a guest," Thomas said. "You should rest." "Please," Maya said. "Let me help." Something in her voice made Thomas pause. He nodded slowly. "Okay, thank you." With Maya's help, breakfast became less chaotic. She scrambled eggs while Sophie made toast, better than her father's attempts. The twins set the table without being asked. Lily chattered happily about school and her friend who had a pet rabbit. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time. Maya had spent 6 months being shouted at and treated like property. Here she was being treated like a person, like she mattered. After breakfast, Thomas got the children ready for school. The twins' shirts were on backwards. Lily couldn't find her shoes. Sophie had forgotten about a homework assignment. It was clear that Thomas was trying his best. But managing 4 children alone while working full-time was overwhelming. After the children left with Thomas driving them to the school bus stop, Maya found herself alone in the cabin. She looked around at the mess, dishes in the sink, clothes that needed washing, floors that needed sweeping. She could leave now, walk out the door and keep running, but where would she go? And more importantly, why would she leave people who had shown her only kindness? When Thomas returned, he found Maya washing dishes. He opened his mouth to protest again, but she shook her head. "Please, I need to do something. I can't just sit here," Thomas understood. Some people healed through rest. Others healed through action. "Okay, but you'll rest when you get tired, right?" "Right." Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Maya would wake up early and start breakfast. She'd clean the house while Thomas was at work in the forest. When the children came home from school, she'd help with homework and make dinner. The evenings were spent around the fireplace, everyone together. The children fell in love with Maya quickly. Lily followed her everywhere, chattering constantly. The twins started coming to her with their scraped knees and hurt feelings. Sophie, who had been trying so hard to be strong, finally had another woman in the house she could talk to. But Maya remained guarded. She never spoke about her past. She never explained why she'd been unconscious by the road. She flinched when anyone raised their voice or moved too quickly. At night, Thomas could hear her crying softly in the guest room. One afternoon, Thomas came home early to find Maya mending a pile of clothes. The children's school uniforms had holes in them that he'd been meaning to fix for months. Their socks were missing buttons. Everything was falling apart, and he just didn't have time to deal with it. "You don't have to do all this," Thomas said gently. Maya looked up, and for the first time he saw a flash of something in her eyes. Not fear, but defiance. "What else am I supposed to do? You've given me food and shelter and asked for nothing. Let me pay you back somehow." "This isn't about payment, Maya." "Then what is it about?" Her voice rose, all the confusion and fear of the past 2 weeks finally spilling out. Why are you being kind to me? What do you want from me? There has to be something. Thomas sat down slowly, understanding dawning. Someone hurt you. Someone made you think kindness always comes with a price. Maya's hands shook as she held the shirt she'd been mending. My parents sold me. Literally sold me because I can't have children. They traded me for money to a man who treated me like property. His wife was cruel. I was nothing to them. Less than nothing. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Once she started, she couldn't seem to stop. She told him everything. The diagnosis, the betrayal, the months of abuse. The desperate escape. Thomas listened without interrupting. His heart breaking for this young woman who'd been failed by everyone who should have protected her. I'm so sorry that happened to you, he said when she finished. You didn't deserve any of that. No one does. Then why did you help me? Why do you let me stay here with your children when you don't know anything about me? Thomas thought carefully about his answer. 2 years ago, my wife Catherine got sick. Pneumonia. We didn't have much money, but our neighbors helped. They brought food, watched the kids, helped pay for medicine. Without them, I don't know what would have happened. Catherine always said that people are supposed to take care of each other, that when someone needs help, you help them, not because you expect something back, but because it's the right thing to do. But your wife died anyway, Maya said softly. Yes, but the kindness people showed us during that time, it mattered. It still matters. And now I can pass it forward. Maya looked at this man who had every reason to be bitter and angry at life, but who chose kindness instead. I don't know how long I can stay. I don't know where I'll go or what I'll do. Then don't think about it yet. Just heal. Get strong again. Figure out who you are when you're not being hurt. The rest will come. That evening, something shifted in the household. Maya stopped being quite so fearful. She laughed at Lily's silly jokes. She helped the twins with their math homework without looking over her shoulder nervously. She even told Sophie a funny story from her childhood. Before everything went wrong, Thomas watched as his children blossomed under Maya's attention, and as Maya herself slowly began to bloom again. His house felt like a home for the first time since Catherine died, but he also noticed other things. How Maya organized the kitchen better than it had been in years. How she remembered everyone's preferences and schedules. How she genuinely cared about his children's happiness and well-being. One night, after the children were asleep, Thomas found Maya sitting on the porch, looking at the stars. Can I sit? He asked. Maya nodded. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. I want to pay you, Thomas said finally, to stay, as our housekeeper. I know it's not much, but you'd have room and board and a salary. The kids love having you here, and honestly, I don't know how we managed before you came. Maya turned to look at him, searching his face. You want to pay me to stay? Only if you want to. No pressure. But you've already been doing the work, and you deserve to be compensated for it. Plus, it would make this official. Legal. No one could say you don't belong here. Maya thought about the word belong. She'd never really belonged anywhere. Her parents had made that clear. Mr. and Mrs. Sharma had made that clear. Could she belong here? In this little cabin in the mountains with these people who had shown her nothing but kindness? Okay, she said quietly. But on one condition. What's that? I want to be family, not just an employee. I want to matter to you all, not just be useful. Thomas smiled. Maya, you already are family. You've been family since Lily decided you were. We just need to make it official. For the first time in years, Maya felt something warm spread through her chest. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of happiness. She was finally home. 3 months had passed since Maya officially became part of the Bennett household. The change in everyone was remarkable. The cabin that had always felt chaotic now felt like a real home. Maya had organized everything with gentle efficiency. The children's school uniforms were always clean and ready. Lunches were packed the night before. Homework was done on time. Most importantly, the house was filled with laughter again. Thomas noticed the biggest change in his children. Sophie, who had been trying so hard to hold everything together, finally relaxed and acted like a 13-year-old again. She giggled with Maya while painting her nails and talked about boys she liked at school. The twins, David and Daniel, had stopped getting into so much trouble. With Maya's patient attention, they were actually doing well in school. She'd discovered that David loved drawing and Daniel loved music. Now the house was full of David's artwork and Daniel's attempts at learning the old guitar that had belonged to Thomas's father. Little Lily had completely attached herself to Maya. She called her Maya Mama sometimes, which made Maya's eyes water every single time. The little girl would hold Maya's hand everywhere they went, and insisted on Maya tucking her in every night with a story. But it wasn't just the children who were changing. Thomas felt like he could breathe again. Coming home from work no longer meant facing chaos and burnt dinner. Instead, he came home to a warm house, good food, and happy children, and Maya herself was transforming. The scared, broken woman who had been unconscious by the road was becoming someone new. She smiled more. She laughed at the twins' terrible jokes. She sang while cooking. The shadows in her eyes were slowly fading. One Saturday morning, Thomas was outside chopping wood when Maya brought him coffee. It had become a routine she'd started, this small act of kindness. "Thank you," he said, taking the warm mug. "You didn't have to. I know. I wanted to." Maya watched him work for a moment. "Thomas, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why haven't you asked me to leave yet?" "It's been 3 months. You must want your house back to normal." Thomas stopped chopping and looked at her seriously. "Maya, this is normal now. This is better than normal. You're not a burden here. You're a blessing. Don't you see that?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. She'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Thomas to tell her she needed to move on. "That's what people did, wasn't it? They tolerated you until you became inconvenient. The children love you," Thomas continued. "They're happier than they've been since Catherine died. And me? I don't know how I survived before you came. You've given all of us something we desperately needed." "What's that?" "A family again. A complete family." Maya wiped her eyes. "You've given me something too. You've given me back myself. I didn't realize how lost I was until I found this place." That afternoon, something happened that changed everything. Thomas had taken the twins into town for their soccer practice. Sophie was at a friend's house. Maya and Lily were in the kitchen making cookies when they heard a knock at the door. Maya's heart jumped. She rarely saw visitors here. She opened the door to find a well-dressed woman standing there with a clipboard. "Hello, I'm Mrs. Patterson from the County Social Services. I'm here to do a home visit for Thomas Bennett." Maya's stomach dropped. "A home visit? Why?" Mrs. Patterson looked at her curiously. "Someone filed a concern about the children's living situation. Said there was an unknown woman living here. We're required to investigate. May I come in?" Maya stepped aside, her mind racing with fear. Was this about her? Had someone found her? Was Mr. Sharma looking for her? Mrs. Patterson walked through the house, making notes. Maya followed nervously, Lily clinging to her leg. "And who are you?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "I'm Maya. I'm the housekeeper." "And you live here? With the children?" "Yes, Thomas hired me 3 months ago." Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose. "I see, and where is Mr. Bennett?" "He took the boys to soccer practice. He should be back soon." The social worker continued her inspection, looking in rooms, checking the refrigerator, asking Lily questions. Maya felt like she was going to be sick. Everything had been going so well. What if they took the children away because of her? When Thomas returned with the twins, he was immediately defensive, seeing the social worker in his home. "What's going on here?" Mrs. Patterson explained about the complaint. Someone had reported that Thomas had hired an unlicensed, unvetted woman to care for his children, that the children might be in danger. Thomas's face turned red with anger. "My children are perfectly safe. Maya is family." "Mr. Bennett, I understand, but we have to follow protocol. The complaint states that this woman appeared out of nowhere with no background check, no references." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Of course she had no references. She couldn't give anyone information about her past without revealing where she'd come from, without potentially leading Mr. Sharma right to her. "I should go," Maya said quietly. "This is my fault. No." All 4 children shouted at once. Lily started crying and wrapped herself around Maya's legs. "You can't leave," Sophie said desperately. "You're part of our family." "We love you," the twins said together. Mrs. Patterson watched this scene with interest. Whatever she'd expected to find, it wasn't this much love and devotion. Thomas took a deep breath and made a decision. "Mrs. Patterson, can I speak with you privately?" They went outside. Maya sat on the couch with all 4 children crowded around her, everyone quiet and scared. 20 minutes later, Thomas and Mrs. Patterson came back inside. The social worker was smiling. "Ms. Maya, I'd like to ask you some questions, if that's all right. But I want you to know that anything you tell me is confidential. I'm here to help, not to judge." Maya looked at Thomas, who nodded encouragingly. So she told her story. Not all of it, but enough. About being sold by her parents. About escaping from abuse. About finding this family when she had nothing. Mrs. Patterson listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, the woman's eyes were wet. "You've been very brave," she said. "And I can see that you love these children and they love you. But we do need to make this situation legal and proper. For your protection and theirs." Over the next hour, Mrs. Patterson helped them figure out a plan. Maya would register with the state, get proper identification, and complete a background check. Thomas would officially employ her, with proper contracts and everything legal. Mrs. Patterson would help Maya file a report about what had happened to her, which would protect her from anyone trying to claim she was property. "There are laws against human trafficking," Mrs. Patterson explained. "What happened to you was illegal. You were a victim, not a criminal. We can help you get legal protection." Before she left, Mrs. Patterson pulled Thomas aside. "You've got a good thing here. That woman loves your children like they're her own. And from what I can see, you've saved her life just as much as she's saved yours. Don't let anyone take that away from you." That night, after the children were asleep, Thomas found Maya sitting on the porch again, looking at the stars. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I almost lost this today. This family, this home. I almost had to run again. But you didn't, and you won't have to. We're going to make everything legal and proper. You're going to be safe here." Maya turned to look at him. "Why do you fight so hard for me?" "I'm nobody. I'm nothing." "That's where you're wrong, Maya. You're everything to this family. You're everything to those 4 kids in there. And if I'm being honest, you're becoming everything to me too." The air between them changed, charged with something new. Maya's heart started beating faster. "Thomas, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just want you to know that you matter. Not because of what you do for us, but because of who you are. You're kind and patient and strong. You survived things that would have broken most people, and somehow you still have love to give. That's remarkable, Maya." Maya didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long believing she was worthless because she couldn't have children. Because her parents had sold her. Because she'd been treated as property. But here was a man telling her she mattered just because she existed. That she had value beyond what she could do or provide. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." "Really seeing me?" Thomas smiled. "That's easy. You're hard to miss." Inside the house, through the window, Sophie watched them sitting together on the porch. She smiled to herself. Her dad had been so sad for so long, and Maya had been so broken when she arrived. But somehow they were healing each other. Maybe, Sophie thought, this was what real family looked like. Not just blood, but choice. People who decided to love each other and stick together no matter what. She went to bed happy, knowing that tomorrow Maya would still be there. And the day after that, and hopefully forever. Life had settled into a beautiful rhythm for Maya. 6 months had passed since she'd arrived in Pinewood Valley, and she finally felt like she could breathe without fear. The legal paperwork was done. She had proper identification. She was officially employed by Thomas. Everything was perfect, too perfect as it turned out. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Sophie came running home from the general store, her face pale with fear. Maya was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the girl burst through the door. "Maya, there's a man in town asking about you." Maya's hands froze over the vegetables she'd been cutting. The knife clattered to the counter. "What?" Sophie rushed to her side. "I was at Miller's store getting flour and there was this man there. He was showing people a picture and asking if anyone had seen a woman who looked like that." Mrs. Miller told him she didn't know anything. "But Maya, I saw the picture." "It was you." The room started spinning. Maya grabbed the counter to steady herself. After all these months of peace, her past had found her. "What did he look like?" Maya asked, her voice shaking. "Tall, expensive suit. He looked mean. Cold eyes, that was enough description." Maya knew exactly who had sent him. Mr. Sharma hadn't forgotten about her. He was hunting her down. Maya's first instinct was to run. She could pack her few belongings and disappear before Thomas got home from work. She'd done it before. She could do it again. But then Lily came bouncing into the kitchen, holding a drawing she'd made at school. "Maya mama, look what I made. It's all of us together. See, there's you and me and Dad and Sophie and David and Daniel." Maya looked at the picture. 5 stick figures and 1 little girl, all holding hands in front of a house. A family. Her family. How could she leave them? But how could she stay and put them in danger? "Sophie, where's this man now?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He was still at the store asking questions, but Maya, Mrs. Miller, didn't tell him anything. Neither did anyone else. They all said they'd never seen you. Small town loyalty. These people had accepted Maya as one of their own and they were protecting her. But for how long? If this man kept asking questions, stayed in town, eventually someone might slip up. We need to tell Dad, Sophie said firmly. She was only 13, but sometimes she was wise beyond her years. Maya nodded. They had to tell Thomas. He deserved to know what was coming. When Thomas came home an hour later, he immediately knew something was wrong. Maya was too quiet. Sophie was too tense. Even the twins were subdued. "What's going on?" he asked. Maya told him everything about the man in town. As she spoke, she watched Thomas's face change from concern to angry. Not angry at her, but angry on her behalf. "He can't have you," Thomas said firmly. "You're not property. You're a person. You have rights. Thomas, you don't understand. Mr. Sharma is powerful. He has money and connections. He could make trouble for all of you. I should just leave before it." "Don't even finish that sentence." Thomas's voice was harder than Maya had ever heard it. "You're not leaving. We're not letting you face this alone. But your children will be fine. We'll figure this out together. That's what families do." That evening, after the children were in bed, Maya and Thomas sat at the kitchen table making plans. Maya wanted to run. Thomas wanted to fight. They were at an impasse. "I can't put you and the kids in danger," Maya insisted. "What if he comes here? What if he tries to take me by force?" "Then we'll call the sheriff." "We have the law on our side, Maya. What happened to you was illegal. Human trafficking is a crime. You think the law will protect me against someone like him? He's rich. He's connected. People like that don't face consequences." Thomas reached across the table and took her hand. "Then we make sure he does. But we do it together. Promise me you won't run." Maya looked into his eyes and saw something there that made her heart ache. He really believed they could win this. More than that, he wasn't willing to let her go. "I promise," she whispered. The next few days were tense. The man was still in town, staying at the small motel on Main Street. He continued asking questions, showing Maya's picture around. But the town had closed ranks around her. No one told him anything. Thomas talked to Sheriff Wilson, an old friend who'd gone to school with his late wife. They filed an official report about Maya's situation. The sheriff promised to keep an eye on the stranger and make sure he didn't cause trouble. But on Friday evening, things came to a head. Maya was picking up Lily from her friend's house when she saw him. The man from the city standing outside the general store watching her. Their eyes met across the street and Maya's blood ran cold. He smiled, a cruel smile that said he'd won. Maya grabbed Lily's hand. "We need to go now, but Maya, Mama, now Lily." They hurried to Thomas's truck, Maya's hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. She drove home faster than she should have, constantly checking the rearview mirror. When they got to the cabin, Thomas wasn't home yet. Neither were the other children. Maya locked all the doors and windows, her heart pounding. "What's wrong?" Lily asked, scared by Maya's fear. "Nothing, sweetie. Everything's okay." Maya tried to smile, but she knew Lily could see through it. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Maya's heart stopped. She looked through the window and saw him, the man from the city, standing on her porch. Their porch, he knocked again. "I know you're in there. I just want to talk." Maya pulled Lily close, her mind racing. Should she call the sheriff? Should she hide? Should she face him? "Mrs. Sharma is very upset that you left," the man called through the door. "Mr. Sharma paid good money for you. You owe them. Running away was stealing." "Go away," Maya finally shouted. "You have no right to be here." "I have every right." "Your property that was stolen. I'm here to return you." Just then, Thomas's truck pulled into the driveway. He saw the strange man on his porch and immediately understood what was happening. The twins and Sophie were with him. Thomas got out of the truck slowly, his face hard. "Get off my property." The man turned, assessing Thomas. "This doesn't concern you. I'm here for the woman. She belongs to Mr. Sharma. She doesn't belong to anyone. She's a free person and she lives here. This is her home. You don't understand the situation." "Oh, I understand perfectly." Thomas stepped closer, and despite being a working man with calloused hands and simple clothes, he suddenly seemed much more dangerous than the man in the expensive suit. "You work for someone who thinks they can buy and sell human beings. You came to my home, frightened my family, and threatened someone I care about. Now I'm going to give you one chance to leave before I make you leave." The man laughed. "You think you can threaten me? Mr. Sharma has lawyers. He has money. He has connections. One word from him and—" He didn't finish because Thomas grabbed him by his fancy suit and physically walked him toward his car. "Get in your car, drive back to the city, and tell your boss that Maya isn't for sale. She never was. If he comes near her again, he'll deal with me and every person in this town. We protect our own here." The man tried to maintain his dignity, but there was fear in his eyes now. "This isn't over. Mr. Sharma doesn't give up. Neither do I," Thomas said. After the man drove away, Thomas went inside to find Maya holding Lily, both of them shaking. Sophie and the twins crowded around them protectively. Thomas knelt in front of Maya. "It's okay. He's gone. For now," Maya said. "But he'll come back. Or Mr. Sharma will send someone else. They won't stop. Then we won't stop either. Tomorrow we're going to a lawyer. A good one. We're going to file charges, get restraining orders, do whatever we need to do. You're not alone in this, Maya. Not anymore." Maya looked at this man who had given her everything: safety, family, home, love, and was now willing to fight her battles alongside her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Thomas smiled gently. "Because you're family. Because you matter. And because I love you." The words hung in the air. It was the first time he'd said it out loud. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too," she said. "All of you. That's why I'm scared. I couldn't bear it if something happened to any of you because of me. Nothing will happen," Thomas promised. "We're going to fight this the right way. With the law, with truth, with community. And we're going to win." As the family huddled together that night, Maya felt something new. Not just fear, but determination. She was tired of running, tired of being afraid. These people loved her and she loved them. It was worth fighting for. Tomorrow the real battle would begin. The next morning, Thomas took the day off work. They drove 2 hours to the nearest city to meet with a lawyer that Sheriff Wilson had recommended. Her name was Mrs. Chen, and she specialized in human trafficking cases. Maya was terrified walking into that office. She'd never had anyone advocate for her before. She'd certainly never had the money for a lawyer. "Don't worry about the cost," Thomas had said. "I've got savings. Catherine always said to keep money aside for emergencies. I think this qualifies." Mrs. Chen was a small woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She listened to Maya's entire story without interrupting, taking careful notes. When Maya finished, the lawyer sat back and looked at her seriously. "What happened to you was human trafficking. It's a federal crime. Your parents committed a crime. This Mr. Sharma committed a crime. And the man who came to your home made threats that constitute harassment and attempted kidnapping. Can we prove it?" Thomas asked. "With Maya's testimony and the records from social services, yes. But I want to be honest with you both. This will be difficult. People like Mr. Sharma don't go down easily. He'll hire expensive lawyers. He'll try to intimidate you. He might try to make Maya look like she's lying or that she left willingly and is now making up stories." Maya felt her hope crumbling. Of course, people with money always won. But Mrs. Chen wasn't finished. "However, we have something powerful on our side. The truth. And I've never lost a trafficking case when I had the truth. It won't be easy, but we can win this." Over the next 2 weeks, they built their case. Mrs. Chen was thorough and fierce. She gathered evidence, filed charges, and got restraining orders against Mr. Sharma, his wife, and Maya's parents. The people of Pinewood Valley rallied around Maya in a way that brought her to tears. Mrs. Patterson from Social Services provided detailed documentation about Maya's situation. Sheriff Wilson gave statements about the threatening man who'd come to town. Neighbors wrote letters about how Maya had become part of their community, how she cared for the Bennett children, how she was a good person. Mrs. Miller from the general store organized a fundraiser to help with legal costs. The whole town showed up. They raised 3 times what Thomas had expected, enough to cover everything and more. "Why are they doing this?" Maya asked, overwhelmed. "Most of these people barely know me." "Because you're one of us now," Thomas said simply. "And we take care of our own." But the hardest part came when Mrs. Chen told Maya she would have to testify. In court, in front of Mr. Sharma and possibly her parents. She would have to tell her story to strangers and face the people who had hurt her. Maya didn't sleep for 3 nights after learning this. The thought of facing them terrified her. What if she froze? What if no one believed her? What if she made things worse? On the 4th night, she was sitting on the porch at 2 in the morning when Sophie came out in her pajamas. "Can't sleep either?" the girl asked. Maya shook her head. Sophie sat down next to her. "I was 7 when Mom got sick," Sophie said quietly. "I remember being so scared. I thought if I was really good, if I did everything right, maybe God would let her stay. But she died anyway. And I was angry at the world for a long time." Maya listened, surprised. Sophie rarely talked about her mother. "Dad told me something that helped. He said that being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're about to do something brave. Because you can't be brave if you're not scared first." "When did you get so wise?" Maya asked, smiling through her tears. "I have good teachers." Sophie hugged Maya. "You're going to be okay. We're all going to be with you. Even if we can't be in the courtroom, we'll be right outside. You won't be alone." The court date came faster than Maya wanted. She put on the nice dress that Sophie had helped her pick out. Thomas wore his only suit. The children weren't allowed in the courtroom, so they waited outside with Mrs. Miller and other townspeople who had come to support them. Walking into that courtroom was one of the hardest things Maya had ever done. And there they were, Mr. Sharma and his wife looking angry and offended. And worse, her parents. Her mother wouldn't look at her. Her father glared with hatred. Maya's legs almost gave out. But Thomas was there, his hand on her back, steadying her. The trial lasted 2 days. Mr. Sharma's lawyer was exactly as intimidating as Mrs. Chen had warned. He tried to make it seem like Maya had come to them willingly, that she was making up stories for sympathy, that she was unstable, but Mrs. Chen was brilliant. She presented evidence. Medical records showing Maya's condition, financial records showing the payment from Mr. Sharma to Maya's parents, testimony from the other servants in the Sharma household about how Maya had been treated, records of the bus ticket Maya had purchased and the investigation into her escape. And then it was Maya's turn to testify. She walked to the stand on shaking legs. She had to tell her story in front of all these strangers. She had to look at the people who had hurt her and tell the truth. Mrs. Chen asked her questions gently, helping her through it. Maya spoke about the diagnosis, about her parents' betrayal, about being sold like an object, about the months of abuse and degradation, about escaping and nearly dying. "And what happened when Thomas Bennett found you?" Mrs. Chen asked. Maya looked at Thomas sitting in the courtroom and felt her courage return. "He saved my life. He and his children gave me back my humanity. They reminded me that I had value just because I existed, not because of what I could do or provide. They loved me when I thought I was unlovable." Mr. Sharma's lawyer tried to break her during cross-examination. He implied she was lying. He suggested she had romantic designs on Thomas and was making up stories to stay in his house. He questioned why she hadn't gone to the police immediately. But Maya held firm. She answered every question truthfully, and when the lawyer asked her why anyone should believe her story, she looked right at him. "Because it's the truth, and because I'm not the first woman this has happened to, and I won't be the last. If no one stands up and tells the truth, if we all stay silent because we're scared, then people like Mr. Sharma keep winning. I'm done being silent. I'm done being scared." The courtroom was silent. Even Mr. Sharma's lawyer seemed taken aback. The children wrote letters to the judge. They couldn't testify, but Mrs. Chen submitted their letters as evidence of Maya's character. Little Lily's letter was written in crayon and said simply, "Maya Mama loves us and we love her. Please don't let the bad people take her away." Daniel wrote about how Maya encouraged his music. David wrote about how she appreciated his art. Sophie wrote about having a woman in the house to talk to again, about feeling like they were a family again. The judge read every letter. And when it came time for the verdict, the courtroom was packed with people from Pinewood Valley who had driven 2 hours to be there for Maya. The judge looked at Mr. Sharma, at Maya's parents, and then at Maya. "I've seen many cases in my career," the judge said, "but this one is particularly clear. What happened to Maya was illegal, immoral, and inexcusable. The evidence is overwhelming." Maya held her breath. "I find Mr. Sharma and Mrs. Sharma guilty of human trafficking and forced labor. I find Maya's parents guilty of human trafficking and child abandonment. They will all face appropriate penalties under federal law." Maya's legs went weak. Thomas caught her, holding her up as relief flooded through her. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am issuing permanent restraining orders. None of these individuals may contact, approach, or attempt to find Maya ever again. She is declared a free woman, with all charges against her dismissed. The court recognizes that she was a victim, not a criminal. The courtroom erupted. People from Pinewood Valley cheered. Mrs. Chen hugged Maya. Thomas held her tight as she cried tears of relief and joy. Outside, the children were waiting. When they saw Maya's face, they knew. They had won. You did it. Sophie cried, hugging her. The twins jumped up and down. Lily wrapped herself around Maya's legs. You were so brave, Thomas said, his own eyes wet. I'm so proud of you. Maya looked at her family, her chosen family, and felt something she'd never felt before. Complete freedom. Complete safety. Complete love. She was finally free. Not just legally, but in every way that mattered. The people who had hurt her would face justice. She would never have to run again. She would never have to hide. She was home, and she was loved, and she was free. Can we go home now? Lily asked. Maya smiled through her tears. Yes, baby. Let's go home, and they did. 1 year had passed since the trial. 1 year since Maya had been declared free. 1 year since justice had finally been served. Life in the Bennett household had settled into something beautiful and ordinary. The kind of ordinary that Maya had once dreamed of but never thought she'd have. It was autumn now, and the mountains around Pinewood Valley were painted in shades of gold and red. Maya stood in the kitchen making breakfast, humming to herself. Through the window, she could see Thomas splitting wood for winter. The twins were playing with their old dog Rocky in the yard. Lily was picking wildflowers. Sophie was upstairs getting ready for school. This was her life now. Simple, beautiful, and completely hers. Maya Mama. Come look, Lily called from the yard. I found a butterfly. Maya wiped her hands on her apron and went outside. Lily had indeed found a butterfly, a beautiful orange and black one that had landed on her finger. It likes me, Lily said, delighted. Of course it does. You're very likable, Maya said, kissing the top of the girl's head. She was almost 8 now. The twins were 11 and Sophie was 14. They had all grown so much in the past year. But more than physically, they had grown as a family. The children called her Maya Mama now without hesitation. To them, she wasn't their housekeeper or their father's friend. She was their mother in every way that mattered. That evening, after dinner was cleaned up and homework was done, Thomas asked Maya to take a walk with him. The children giggled and whispered behind their hands, which made Maya suspicious. What's going on? She asked. Nothing. Just a walk. Humor me. They walked along the forest path they'd walked 100 times before. The evening air was cool and smelled of pine and falling leaves. It was Maya's favorite time of day. I've been thinking, Thomas said as they walked, about everything that's happened this past year and a half. Me too, Maya said. It feels like a different life sometimes. Like the person I was before doesn't even exist anymore. Do you miss your old life at all? Maya stopped walking and looked at him seriously. Not for a single second. Thomas, before I came here, I didn't have a life. I was just surviving. Here with you and the children, I'm actually living. I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Thomas smiled, but he looked nervous about something. They continued walking until they reached their favorite spot, a clearing in the trees where you could see the whole valley below. Maya, I need to ask you something, Thomas said. His hands were shaking, which was unusual for him. He was a lumberjack, steady and strong. What could make him nervous? Then he got down on one knee and Maya's heart stopped. When you came into our lives, we were broken. All of us. We were just going through the motions, surviving but not really living, just like you said. But you changed everything. You brought love and laughter back into our home. You gave my children a mother when they desperately needed one. And you gave me something I never thought I'd have again. Thomas. Maya's eyes were already filling with tears. He pulled out a simple ring. Nothing fancy, but beautiful. You gave me love. Real true love. Not the desperate kind born from need, but the kind that grows from respect and friendship and genuine caring. Maya, I don't want you to be just the housekeeper. I don't want you to be just part of the family. I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me? Maya couldn't speak. She could only nod as tears streamed down her face. Thomas stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. Is that a yes? He asked, laughing. Yes. Yes, of course, yes, Maya managed to say. They held each other as the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. This man had saved her life in more ways than one. And somehow, without meaning to, she had saved his too. When they walked back to the cabin hand in hand, the children were waiting on the porch. They must have been watching from the window because they all started cheering the moment they saw them. She said yes, Thomas announced. The children swarmed them, everyone talking at once. Sophie was crying happy tears. The twins were high-fiving each other. Lily was jumping up and down. "Does this mean you'll be our real mom?" Lily asked. Maya knelt down to look the little girl in the eyes. "Baby, I've been your real mom for a long time now. This just makes it official." That night, after the children were finally in bed, they'd been too excited to sleep, Maya sat on the couch looking at her ring. It wasn't expensive or fancy, but it was the most precious thing she'd ever owned. Thomas sat beside her. "Having second thoughts?" "Never. I'm just thinking about how strange life is. A year and a half ago, I was dying by the side of the road. I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left to live for. And now? Now I have everything. A home, children who love me, a man who sees me as valuable not despite my inability to have children. But regardless of it, it's more than I ever dreamed possible." Thomas took her hand. "You know what's funny? People always told me that real families are made of blood. But our family proves that's not true. Sophie, the twins, Lily, they're not your biological children, but you're their mother in every way that matters. You've chosen to love them, and they've chosen to love you back. I wish I could give you more children," Maya said quietly. It was the one shadow that still lingered sometimes. "You'd be such a good father to a baby." "Maya, look at me." Thomas waited until she met his eyes. "I have 4 incredible children. I don't need more. What I need is you just as you are. Your worth has nothing to do with your fertility. It never did. You're valuable because you're you, because you're kind and strong and loving, because you make terrible jokes that make the twins groan, because you braid Lily's hair with infinite patience, because you listen to Sophie's boy problems without judgment, because you make our house a home." "How did I get so lucky?" Maya whispered. "I think we both got lucky. We found each other when we both needed it most. The wedding was small and perfect. They got married in the town church with everyone from Pinewood Valley in attendance. Maya wore a simple white dress that Sophie had helped her pick out. Thomas wore his suit, the same one he'd worn to court. Lily was the flower girl and took her job very seriously. The twins were in charge of the rings. Sophie stood beside Maya as her maid of honor, crying happy tears through the whole ceremony. Mrs. Miller had organized the whole town to put together a reception. There was food and music and dancing. People gave speeches about how Maya had become part of their community, how she'd proven that family is about love, not blood. Sheriff Wilson gave a toast to Maya, who had the courage to escape, to heal, and to love again, and to Thomas, who had the wisdom to recognize a treasure when he found one. Mrs. Chen, who had driven 2 hours to attend, said, "I've helped a lot of trafficking survivors over the years. Most of them struggle for a long time to rebuild their lives. But Maya didn't just survive. She thrived. She found love and family and became stronger than ever. She's an inspiration. But the most touching moment came when,